think it's very important side by side for us to keep ourselves focused around the future, focused around, of course, the imminent turnaround. We will be back to better times, and we thought it's probably opportune for us to kind of spend some time on something that probably is very important for all of us to bear in mind, and that is the importance of, whether it's good times or bad times, to continue to chip away in terms of learning new skills, keeping ourselves employable, especially the youth of the country. And as an organizations, we felt that this gap between the imminent demographic advantage that we have and the possible resurgence of the economy is kind of held back on account of lack of skills. And apprenticeship, we felt, was an important conduit to be able to bridge that gap for the youth as well as for corporate India in the long run. India has historically underutilized apprenticeship in a big way. I think it was something which was an agenda to fix since 1975, but it never really got the kind of attention it required, whether it's from policymakers, whether it's from corporates, till probably about 4 or 5 years back. After a slew of changes and amendments that have happened in the world of apprenticeship in India, we have seen that more and more employers, more and more youth getting excited about apprenticeship, and it augurs well. And in present times, like never before, I think we are all reminded about the importance of apprenticeship. So we have been doing this webinar to discuss about, honestly, the intent of doing these webinars and sessions is to create awareness both amongst the youth as well as corporate India about the different possibilities of apprenticeship, how it adds value to businesses as well as today's youth, how it is changing the diversity equations in the country. So we have got today 2 eminent panelists amongst us. I think while they do not need much of a background, I'm sure most of you have heard about them, but I'll probably formally introduce the 2 of them to you. Mr. Gandhi, good to have you amongst us. I think you had a little bit of a struggle joining in.
Yes.
So anyway, good to have you here. Just to carry on with the proceedings, I think we have amongst us Mr. Harjeet Khanduja. He's Vice President HR of Reliance Jio. He's an international speaker, author, poet, visionary, HR leader, inventor, and influencer. Harjeet has set multiple greenfield projects and has handled HR for large multinational organizations in various geographies, with a range of industry sectors, which include actually automotive, manufacturing, pharma, alternate energy, IT, ITS, telecom, digital, healthcare, and retail. Phew, I mean, the list is long. And we, of course, have Mr. Sitaram Gandhi, Vice President HR of Tata Motors. He has been in the field of human resource for more than a decade and was previously heading HR for a leading business group that varied from supply chain, retail, military, security and communication, medical, industrial, office automation, telecom, electronics. I think even for Mr. Gandhi, the list is long. And it's brilliant to have the 2 of you because you bring in all the diversity that we need in today's conversation. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us.
Great.
Thank you.
So just a few housekeeping pointers for our audience, that as we speak, please do not hesitate to keep sending us your question and answers. There is a Q&A tab, I'm assuming, which is appearing in your screen. So please keep sending your Q&As, and towards the latter half of the conversation, we will try and pick up some of these questions. So the format, just for everyone's benefit, we will spend some time. I have made a list of questions which I've been very eager to ask our eminent panelists. And once we have those discussions, I think by that time, all of us will be eager to ask a lot more other questions. We'll move on to that. So just to start today's proceedings, I'll start with you, Mr. Khanduja. Why don't you help share what you think have been your views on how apprenticeship regime has changed and transformed since 2014? 2014 is essentially when the last set of reform and amendments around apprenticeship system happened in India. Have you seen any change? I mean, you've spent a lot of years in this industry. Have you seen a before after?
Yeah, I have seen a before after. In fact, I was with Tata Motors. That was my first job. And we had a full apprenticeship setup in the Lucknow plant. That was the first thing which we had set up. And we were training a lot of apprentices. So at the beginning of my career, I got introduced to, okay, this is how apprenticeship works. And the way we were diligent about apprenticeship, their classes are happening and they're working on the floor. And that was something which was institutionalization of apprenticeship, that you want people to work on certain trades and they have applicability, they are enhancing their skill set, they go through their examination and do NCBT. So all that was there. Inspections used to happen. I have been part of those inspections. Over the years, how I have seen this entire thing growing was like in 2014, if you talk about, there were a lot of changes which were brought by government. Earlier, you cannot bring interstate candidates for this. That was one of the hassles which was there, which was eased out. Most important thing, a penal provision was there that if you don't comply to certain guidelines, then there are certain penalties, and so those penalties were taken off from the employers so that you don't hesitate to get into this engagement mode of apprentices. Another important piece was that earlier when you had to give leaves or holidays to apprentices, you had to take permission from somebody who will tell you whether you can give leave. So all these things have been given to employers so that it becomes easier for you to administer the whole piece. And there were like many such things which were introduced. In fact, Tata Motors was a big organization. So it was running the whole scheme on its own. Government created a provision that if you are a small employer, then say 8-10 employers come together and they can also run a scheme, or they can appoint somebody who can actually coordinate the entire apprenticeship program for you. And look, one aspect is that what is that government is doing as policy making. Another aspect is how the society has changed. So earlier, the capacity which we were talking about was that we should have 2 lakh apprentices, and there was a cap on that. That cap was removed, that now we can have say 20 lakh apprentices. And I thought that we will have 20 lakh apprentices. But unfortunately, if you look at the number, from 2 lakh, we have come to 3 lakh, or if you combine all kinds of apprenticeships, we come to a number of 8 lakhs. And you compare it with, say, countries like China. Chalo, China is a big country, has more population, but you compare it with country like Japan. They offer a crore of apprenticeships. Where are we? Means even after the policy change, what has happened is people still have that same image that, okay, apprenticeship means all these problems are going to be there.
Right.
That awareness is something which is missing, and through which, look, if we have to compete in a global economy, we have to make sure that apprenticeship system works, and it doesn't work just by government.
Right.
It works when society is there, people are interested in doing apprenticeships, employers are offering apprenticeship, and government is making policy. So government has done its bit. Now it is, I know employers are doing a bit on their own. Society is also playing a ball, but we need to do more on all the 3 fronts.
Thank you so much. So you basically have raised a very important point that while there has been some level of change and amendments, welcome changes and amendments, we probably still lack awareness amongst all the stakeholders to kind of extract more out of this. I completely agree with you. And I think the reason that since 2014 till today, we've never stopped our dialogues and deliberations around apprenticeship as an organization is because we feel that we need to make that commitment to constantly create that awareness. As a matter of fact, I'm glad you brought up the point on Tata Motors. So when TeamLease, again, way back in 2009, 2010, we were trying to work with the government in terms of in terms of amendments and modification, and also to experiment that whether we can have a special apprenticeship scheme. We wanted to create a model apprenticeship scheme which will excite people to follow and emulate, and maybe that would help in massification. At that point of time, during the course of the research, I realized that Tata Motors was actually one of the very few companies in the 1970s which actually took advantage of Section 14C of the Apprenticeship Act, which allowed for a special apprenticeship scheme. It gave us a lot of confidence because when it comes to dealing with government and public policy makers, precedents play a very important role. So I'm glad that you brought it up, and Tata Motors from that perspective has been a role model when it comes to massification of apprenticeship. But unfortunately, I agree with you that I don't think it has gone beyond few organizations. Of course, we made improvements, but we have to make a lot more improvement. Mr. Gandhi, what have you seen? I mean, you are with Tata Motors right now. What changes, what have you seen have happened since 2014?
So first of all, Harjit, thanks a lot for taking up the cause of Tata Motors. So probably I don't have to talk much about Tata Motors. So I have Harjit covering up. Also, to my approach and answer could be slightly biased because I am also the chairman of Board of Apprentice for Western Region.
Okay.
Right. So I would always talk for pro, right? So being on the side of implementation of the policy. So first and foremost, apart from what Jeet has said, that a lot has been done, but I personally feel, because I am also an implementer and an agency which uses the apprenticeship, still there is a quote unquote view about apprentice in the society. Whether it is student, whether it is company, or the society, we look apprentice from a different angle. So first and foremost, let me look at the student part. And to narrow down our conversation, let's look at the engineer graduates, right? On one side, we say we don't find, engineers don't find jobs. And the other side, if you ask any company, that is an equally Herculean task to find an apprentice. And the reason is still in the institutes, it is an image that only people who do not find a campus placement go for apprentice. So student as a first go don't want to go for an apprentice. And the companies also have 3 layers of onboarding engineers. They have their leadership programs, they have their trainee programs, and the third program is apprentice program, right? All passed out from the same batch, different colleges, but are put at different levels of importance in the organization. So same is the case with the parents. Parents also are hesitant to tell someone that my son or daughter is an apprentice in a company. They are more happy to say that they are on the roles of the company. So there is a huge change needed, that apprenticeship helps people to cross that bridge from unemployment to employment, from campus to industry, rather than looking at as a via media for not having a job. And as far as what has changed 2014 onwards, a lot has changed. A lot in the sense, a real ease of engaging apprentice. Everything has become online. The penalties, the fear of penalty has gone. And most importantly, earlier, there was strict mandate that you have to hire X percentage. Now it's moved up to 15%. If an industry really wants to leverage, there is a huge opportunity. And I have large examples where the boards have gone, even if in a particular industry wants more than 15%, they've been flexible, provided you establish that you have a very good training facility and you are using this to train genuinely rather than using it as an alternate employment source. So there were examples where companies have got more than 15% approval to engage. So it's becoming more industry friendly, more online, more prompt in reimbursing the stipends, transparency, etc. I think on the system side, a lot of change, but especially on the mindset and on the acceptance side, a lot of work to be done as far as the apprenticeship is concerned.
I think both of you have finished on the same note in terms of acceptance, awareness. I think it has always been a burning topic that while we might have put some of the plumbing in place, but there seems to be still a lack of inadequate motivation for all stakeholders to jump onto the apprenticeship bandwagon. I think, and I also know, I rather empathize when you're talking about how parents react to this entire idea. Apprenticeship always has been looked at as something for someone else's child, not your own. So until and unless we change some of those perceptions, we do have a long way. But I feel on ground there has been adequate progress made since how things were probably 10 years back. Now let's talk about specifically around the skills, technical knowledge, soft skills, and willingness to learn are the preferred skill sets while hiring apprentices. What are your views, Mr. Kanduja, on this? And would you like to add your points that you look for or you would like to look for when you're hiring an apprentice? Is there any specific set or criteria? Because I think apprentices rather, or the ones who are looking for apprenticeships are may not be the creams in their respective academic skill sets, may not be, but hence are there anything that you have, a wish list when it comes to what kind of skill sets you would look for sure in any apprentice?
So frankly speaking, it is not the skill set which you look for, because when you are getting into this kind of commitment, then you're looking for whether raw material is good for the job which you are picking up. So like you said, willingness to do the job. Major challenge comes there if the person sitting in front of you thinks that this is a compromise.
Right.
And I am taking this because there is nothing else. So moment I get something else, then I will move on. So these are certain things which are scary. Second is learnability, that you are willing to learn or you're willing to do the job. Can you learn on the job? Because that is what we offer in apprenticeship programs, that you come and you do the job with your hands, and based on that you learn. So anyone who has learnability and anyone who is willing to do the job, these are the only two criteria. Apart from that, rest everything you can learn at the employer, because each employer has some different kind of work which requires the basic engagement of your trade. Like if you are an electrician, so to say, or if you are going to get into electrical engineering kind of a setup, then you should know basics of electricity. That much you would definitely ensure that this person should not harm himself or herself. So otherwise it is willingness to learn, willingness to do the job, and learnability. These are the only two things which matter.
Great. Mr. Gandhi, what about your views? Do you have a wish list when it comes to looking at apprentices, is there some specific skill sets that you look for?
Yeah, it's two parts of apprentice. One is the trade apprentice, those who come with hand skills, right? If you look at the data, look at their retaining skill and sticking around, the ratio is very high. Whereas if you look at what Deepa spoke about, the qualified trades or qualified skills like the diploma, engineers, etc., there the retention are very low because this is their last option or priority. If nothing else works out, I take as an apprentice. Whereas for a trade apprentice, this is the first priority because I get an industry certificate. So I go with all the passion to do and deliver. Now coming to the part of the segment where we really have a challenge of retaining or bringing out the best in them. I think there is a huge, this is my personal experience. Everyone would have their own different experiences. But when we go to the campus and ask the apprentice whom we are selecting, whether it is diploma or degree, if you ask them a question, which department or function you want to work,
right,
I can bet that 9 out of 10 people say design. Okay.
Wow. This is among trade apprentices, you're saying?
Among the engineer apprentice.
Engineer apprentice.
Graduate apprentice or undergraduate apprentice. Whereas trade apprentice, they know if I'm a welder, if I'm a mechanic, if I'm an electrician, I'm going to work in an industry as a welder. So their mindset is already created. They come with a full acceptance to deliver as a welder and they deliver. So we don't see a challenge of retention except if some other company is paying 1,000 rupees more stipend, that's a different story. But there is no dissatisfaction on being a welder. But when it comes to more higher qualification apprentices, you see this a lot. Whereas in the institute, I think the only thing which is spoken or taught is every company has design and everyone should get into a design function. And everything and anything else, then the design function is not a big job in the company. So we see a lot of dissatisfaction once they come to and join the organizations. So coming back to your question, what is your wish list or what is your ask? I am a strong promoter of one particular concept. Wherever I go, whichever institute I go, I ask a question to the principal and the faculty. You are producing a student to work in an industry. How many times have you visited an industry? Right. So many of the time, the faculty says we have gone on an industrial visit. Going on an industrial visit for half an hour, sitting in a conference room, is not actually knowing industry. I think if a faculty also, like a student, works in an industry for an internship, at least once in 5 years, they really understand what are the need of the organization, how a shop floor looks like, how a floor looks like, how an office looks like, what are the functions, where are the career opportunities, where these kind of capabilities can perfectly fit, rather than a B city or a C city student, you are hyping their expectation that everyone passing out of engineering college should only work in a design department, is actually putting something which may not be realistic for them, and they'll end up neither being in design nor being in operations and not being on shop floor. So this is an ask that one, the faculty should know what is an industry need, how the industry functions, so that they can teach and train them for a period of time. And second is the students' capability to learn the industry nuance. So technology is not a challenge. When someone can become an engineer in 4 years, an industry can invest another 1 year and teach them technology. But the willingness to learn, the integrity, say if in an interview, you are doing an interview and you see that 4 students brought the same project report, right? So it becomes very difficult to hire someone like this and then put in a shop floor and say, now you deliver with a high degree of integrity.
Right.
So if two things are put together, realistic expectations by the students or realistic view to what is the industry to the student. Second, molding students to be learning and high degree of integrity.
Great.
Remaining things, I think industry can input and train them.
Right, right. Interesting. So I think now I'm going to move on to a question, which is a diversity question. I think we've been doing these reports and surveys around gauging the sentiments and openness of organizations towards apprentices. And we noticed about 42-43% of the employers still prefer to hire male apprentices, about 25-26% women, and the rest are kind of neutral. So what can we do to kind of address this inherent bias issue that is there? I mean, is there something, a specific approach one can adopt to actually have more women apprentices? I'll just give you a nuance. I mean, just when we were starting with this concept of apprenticeship with us in Team Leads, one of the largest aircon manufacturers in this country actually approached me and said that, I actually want to introduce apprentices, engineering apprentices in my shop floor who will all be 100% women. Because in his mind, he felt that that can actually improve the productivity, workplace dynamics in that shop floor. I don't know how many such employers are there. I mean, he actually executed that plan. So we hired a bunch of women apprentices, diploma engineers for the shop floor. But what's your take on it? How do we encourage more employers to open up their environment and workplaces to more women apprentices? Mr. Khandeja, let's start with you.
This is a mindset issue. So we are good at typecasting. So we have typecasted apprentice means a men's job. Okay, apprentice hoga to the guy has to be male, and that has been going around for quite some time. So that is the image which is there. Like what we talk about mental health issues. People say mental health means mental hospital, and then they create that image ki acha hai, and then you have to struggle and break that image in the minds of people. That is what it is. Look, everyone says that if your women workforce comes and joins hands in the industry, then your GDP can grow up to 16%, not up to 16%. 16 to 50% is the range where you can see the improvement in GDP, which is a huge growth. And government has realized that. Government also says, in fact, I was looking at the engineering colleges. There are certain seats which have been reserved by government for women who can actually go and study engineering. Although all the men were of the view that why this is being done, this is discrimination and whatever. But what has happened is because of that, now we have a lot of qualified women who can actually participate. And till the time you experience that, it is the first hitch. So I remember we were also having similar kind of debate, and then we decided, let's go ahead. Moment you take the first step, all those apprehensions go away. Like work from home. Since last year, if you see that apprehension that work from home, how will it happen and how can it happen? All those apprehensions have gone. It is just taking that first step, which is something which is very, very important. Now you can't complain that there are no women as apprentices. There are, and government is making sure that supply is there. Now, how you want to utilize that? Generally, people, the biggest excuse which people give for not hiring, say, women apprentices is safety. How can safety be I understand if you're sending somebody on the field job, I can still understand, and that too in remote area, in hazardous, in odd times. But when you run an operation, you run a safe and secure operation. As of now, if you see, there are many Uber drivers who are female. So there are pilots which are female. You pick up any particular industry or any particular job which was earlier said to be a male driven employee. We have women in police force. Is your job more difficult or more dangerous than that? So it is just a mindset issue. Somebody will have to step up. Once you take the first step, all those fears will go away. Most of these fears are hypothetical. And since you have supply, you can actually do it, and you can do a lot of good to the nation and to the entire world. In India, if you see in terms of female labor force, we rank 121st in the list of 131 countries. We are that bad, and we need to improve as a society. So I believe that's what I would say, and that's where I will stop.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Khanduja. I think I believe that apprenticeship actually is a boon for all job market outsiders, and especially for women. And given, like you said, in India's deplorable condition in women workforce participation, it actually could augur well if we can encourage more women in the talent pipeline, which is the future talent pipeline of apprentices. So, Mr. Kandi, in your experience, you're somebody who on ground is very close to what can be done around apprentices. Do you have any thoughts? Do you have any ideas how we can encourage employers to hire more women apprentices, as well as motivate women to also get themselves considered as apprentices? I'm sure it's a two-way street.
So I'll give a practical examples, right? Seen very closely where these are implemented and why it becomes difficult in some places to implement, right? So in one of my earlier assignment where we were building a greenfield facility, manufacturing facility. So we were talking about hiring women where we were doing heavy welding. We are doing welding for truck of a railway engine, truck frame of a railway engine, where it's a heavy duty welding. So the same perception that this job is meant for men because the welding gun is very, very heavy, men can lift, etc. So we challenged the operations. We said, if we cannot put women in the most toughest job according to us, where else can we put women? So we gave additional headcount approval over and above the requirement. We said we want to hire women, but if you see that it's a challenge, so we'll put on our budget, we'll put additional women. So the budget, the department strength was 17. We gave additional 10 from our budget, from a HR budget. We put 10 women there. 6 months down the line, the manager comes back and says, Sitaram, can you do something and take out these 17 men and give me all women? Right. So it just took 6 months for these girls out of the college to learn welding and do much, much better welding than the 7 or 10-year-old employees there. So it's just the mindset. One, they learn very fast. The second part is that I have seen wherever we start the conversation with statistics and wherever we start conversation with, let's do the statistics somehow, there the program fails. When I say somehow, is say if an organization says, let's have 10% women, and then we start searching for jobs, light job, desk job, etc., that's not a sustainable model. Because you are mentally already saying that they cannot do or they cannot be handling the toughest of the jobs. The program will only stay for 1 year and then it dies off, right? Whereas if you say, let's list out the most challenging jobs in our environment. Let's put women in the most challenging environment, top 2 toughest jobs. Let's ask the operation leader, if you say operating crane is the toughest, or welding is the toughest, or operating a 5-axle machine is the toughest job we have, let's first put women there. The moment 1 or 2 women show that they do much better job, every other job becomes easier than that. And then there is no discrimination. In the first example, what I told you, in the second year, we launched a program. We said 50-50. In the factory, we had 50% women. And the condition we put was, we will not sign an appointment letter to a boy unless we sign an appointment letter to a girl. So always the appointment letter or the offer letter was 1 boy, 1 girl. If you have 2 boys already shortlisted, you will not issue an offer letter to the second boy unless you find a girl. So it's always the offer letter has to come in a bunch, 1 boy, 1 girl, right? And the latest example, while we were all locked down, shut down last April, in one of our facilities, since beginning till date, we have never engaged women in the night shift. So you can imagine the number of years Tata Motors has been operating. And every time this proposal comes, we always were afraid that our city is not geared up, our infrastructure is not geared up, safety is a challenge, security is a challenge. We took it as a challenge. We said, how far and how long can we give this as an excuse and deprive women of an employment in an industry? And it's our failure if we are unable to give an environment and security, then all of us are not needed to be in such senior positions to say that we give an environment to work. We put a task force, we mapped from point to point where they stay, what is the safety security of the location if they have to get down with the bus at midnight, what is the surrounding, how does it look like at midnight? And actually our teams have visited that place at midnight to see how it looks at midnight. Right? And within 7 days, we started second shift operation. And we have hired 700 women to operate in all 3 shifts. Where we had about 100 odd only to work in a first shift. Today, we have 700 women working in all 3 shifts. It's possible. It's just the first step and the mindset. We can change. And coming to the Western region statistics, this year has been quite good. If you look at just the graduate apprentice, across the country, we have about 1 lakh of them engaged, and about 38% are women. And in Western region, we have about 23,500 graduate apprentice, 30,000 graduate apprentice in Western region alone registered this year. Again, we have about 9,000 of them are women. So about 35-38% of the women are coming. But when the society outside is 50-50, I think minimum 50 should be. Anything less than 50, we should not say that we are good.
Absolutely. Great news. If the percentage has already shifted to 38%, it is far above the women workforce.
Only graduate apprentice, whereas still a long way to go on all the other apprentice categories.
So at least in the...
Whether it's a trade, whether it's a diploma apprentice, trade apprentice, unskilled, skilled, there's a huge, they're all around 10% maximum range. So a lot to be done.
So at least in one segment, there is some good news for women. But I think it's very important to also remind ourselves that this linkage of gender with work timings, even in the recent 4 labor codes, have been done away with. So I think there is clearly a nudge in that direction where if on one hand, we're talking about equal opportunities, we can't be restrictive and patronizing when it comes to work timing. So I'm so glad when you, I mean, just as a woman, I was very glad to hear, Mr. Gandhi, about the way you're saying that women have to be put across equally challenging roles. And at some level, I feel it's, if we talk about equal opportunity, I don't see a reason why men should be exposed only to precarious work while women are being protected. I don't think women need, I think men needs as much protection doing
absolutely
a heavy job. And that's something I'm sure as organizations, you have all the safety measures in place, right, to protect all your employees. And hence, why should gender matter at the end of the day? You
So
want to protect the men and the women equally.
absolutely. So I think it's all mindset. In one of the industry, one of the school asked for a permission to look at the manufacturing process, and the plant head said, no, it's unsafe for children. I said, then shut down the factory.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely. Bang on. I'm saying you, I think a lot of EHS is an important agenda for all of you, and safety is an important agenda for everyone today. And it is an essential, regulated, I mean, it's a compliance issue if you're not a safe environment, clearly. I mean, you're, like you
Improve
rightly
safety.
said.
Rather than stopping recruitment, improve safety.
Absolutely. Bang on. Thank you so much for that. It was really encouraging. I think before we wrap up, there are questions which are coming. I should take those questions. But one last question to both of you. Mr. Khanduja, we talk about technology a lot these days. Thanks to pandemic, technology is a ghar ghar ka word. I think digitization, we're talking a lot about these words. How can technology actually play a role in massification of apprenticeship in this country? Because this country, in terms of size and scale and amount of impact we need to do through apprenticeship, we have a long way to go. It's a big country, but we can't wait for another 100 years. So how can actually technology play a role in this process of growing the number of apprentices in the country? And after you, Mr. Khanduja, I'll come to you, Mr. Kandi, with the same question. Yes.
So if you see, when apprenticeship program started, it was basically for manufacturing. And what is seen is that it is whenever you talk about apprentices, the first image is somebody is standing on a machine, either doing welding or doing some electrical work or plumbing work, something like that. Apprenticeship Act right now, when they give you graduate apprentices, you can actually do sales through them. You can do service through them. And in service industry, there are many jobs which can be done by them. Now, how the transition has happened is more and more jobs are going to get created in the services space. One is all your agriculture. When I used to study, I was a kid, it was like 70% of our population is in agriculture. Now it is 40%. That is going to go down. Manufacturing is also going to shrink because of whatever we are bringing in terms of automation. So more and more jobs are going to get created in the service sector. And when you are creating jobs in the service sector, that means it doesn't matter where you are sitting. You can provide service from anywhere. You can do sales from anywhere. And right now it is happening on digital mode. Look, this is one of the problems of apprenticeship program also. When you tell somebody, okay, you are going to be apprentice, it is not a matter of pride. Apprentice, I will be apprentice. People prefer a gig economy job over apprenticeship because that is something which is competing. Why? It is not only money. If you see what a youngster aspires for, apna ek bike ho, we should have a bike, or I have a car. So in Uber, you get a car. In all the delivery jobs, you get a bike. So that is extra motivation. And then it is my time. I am not going to get engaged in a particular job for say 12 months or 36 months. These are the factors which play on the mind of people. So one is some flexibility required there. Second is more trades on the service side. And this is one area which is evolving and it is going to evolve. Although a lot of opportunities are there with the existing system also, which can be leveraged. But this is one area which can be looked at. And of course, more awareness, that is going to create more service level jobs. And maybe and in this I just thought right now, instead of seeing gig as a competition, if we start seeing that okay, gig is something which can also drive apprenticeship, That is going to help gig economy as well as apprenticeship in a much better manner.
I mean, you have given me food for thought here. I mean, I think in itself, we should spend some time discussing the linkage between gig job roles and apprenticeship. And great idea. Maybe we'll call you back again in one session, which we should do on this topic itself. Mr. Kandi, what is your thought on this? How do you think we can leverage technology for massification of apprenticeship or improve the overall quality of the apprenticeship ecosystem?
One is the input and the output. Today we have challenge at both the ends on getting a full view of input and the output. Still, the universities or the colleges or the institutes themselves are not promoting the apprenticeship. So if we also get a platform where all the desired candidates also get an access, which are all the industries and companies looking for apprentice, a single view for apprentice to choose. Today, whatever is happening is through a limited interest of the placement officer or a placement agency in the institute. But if there is a platform which opens up for a student to leverage across the country, that's the input level. And the output level is one of the reasons why apprentice is also not very keen and not very, I would say, engaged or energized, is they don't know what's going to happen after a year, right? So most of the time the company says, here is a letter, you have finished your apprenticeship and you're out of the gate. The students don't know after 1 year, do I get a job? Will I find a job or not? So even at the exit level, if the companies also start looking at hiring those who have completed apprenticeship whenever they have an opportunity. So a single platform for input and output would improve the quality on both ends, and in between pulling in the government resource to make it easy for registration, make it easy for reimbursement, make it easy for certification, coming in, going out, dealing or ease. Like if today you want to put an apprentice for an overtime, all said and done, today the business is very, very volatile. The demand fluctuation is so high. 1 month you have demand and the other month you don't have anything. So if you have to put an apprentice on overtime, there is a cumbersome process to get an approval for an overtime. So if this becomes online, or get away with all these things and leave it to the industry on using the apprentice also, because in a production shop floor, it can never happen that you're only using them for training and not using them for production, because there is no additional place. You just have one machine. So 3 parts, I would say: input, the interface with the government agency, and the output. There is a huge opportunity for digitization and simplification.
Thank you so much, both of your views. I think in some ways, it was a much needed validation of a couple of our initiatives. I think we have been working on this aggregating platform portal, whatever you might called apprentices.in, which essentially brings together all stakeholders, the youth, the corporates, the third-party providers, even the different kinds of hiring partners, if I may say so. I think we've been working on it, and we would invite all your recommendations and suggestions. Please go through it if there is any way we can improve upon it. And the second initiative is that how we are leveraging digital, the mobile revolution and the app revolution by providing the linkage to a degree linkage to the current apprenticeship program. So the youth actually have an option through which they can pick up an apprenticeship program, but side by side, they can also opt for a degree linked bachelor's course, which is completely modular in nature. They can do it through their app. I would invite all your suggestions and views on how we can make it better and improve. These are some of our initiatives in this direction. We have some questions, given that we are running out of time. And I will quickly jump to that. I think the first question that has come, which I'd like to take it up with you, Harjeet, is that what is your thought on degree apprenticeship? This is a question specifically for you.
So, degree apprenticeship is something which is like all the apprenticeship. This is something which is very, very important, and most of the organizations can actually leverage degree apprenticeship. So earlier, the apprenticeship used to be trade based, and when this change happened, that now apprenticeship can be degree based, and even people from degree colleges can actually apply for apprenticeship. That is a very welcome thing, so to say, which has happened. And when you look at the stipend and all, so
Right,
they have given a fairly decent stipend for degree apprentices also.
right, absolutely.
So to me, it is a great initiative.
Oh, absolutely. I think this is the degrees still have a social signaling value in this country. So when you merge an apprenticeship program with a degree linkage, I think it's a win-win solution for today's youth in any case. There's one more question, which is, Mr. Gandhi, maybe you could take it up. How apprenticeship helps in reducing attrition and in creating future talent pool? I know it's probably an obvious question, but your thoughts on that?
So see, it's a great program, right? And it depends on what is your first step, how you treat as an organization, what is your approach and view towards apprentice. If you hire apprentice as a replacement for your mundane jobs, I come across, I see that a lot of companies, because we have to fulfill some certain percentage, you hire an apprentice, an engineer apprentice, and put them in a department, and then they end up only carrying files and doing Xerox. Then it's not at all a good program. Better stay away. You're not adding value to the whole program at all. Right. But the other way around, look at this as an opportunity and obligation that you as a company, if not anything else, you have a responsibility of building somebody else's career. So hire someone, put them on critical projects, and look that 1 year down the line when the apprentice walks out, are you making the apprentice employable outside? If the employee is not finding a job after working with you for a year, I think it's something to do with the organization's capability to train the apprentice. Once the organization turns towards putting this into perspective, that anyone joining me after 1 year, they should be employable is my responsibility. So I should give the input, I should put them on a rigorous training program. I should put them on a project which will add value to them. This is one of the biggest programs, and retention becomes very, very easy. I don't think any apprentice would like to leave when they know that by working here for 1 year, if they're going to find a job outside after 1 year, why would they like to leave? What will motivate them to leave so early? So look this as building pipeline, building talent, and building careers. This is a great program. But if you are looking at it as a tick the box or substitute to your temporary employment, I think then the program is failed at both ends. It's a career damage to student. It's a reputation damage to the organization.
I'm so glad you made this. I know we even now encounter situations where people do feel tempted to use apprenticeship as a modified version of temp workers, and of course that needs to stop. There has been many questions in the group, in the Q&A, in different forms, asking what should we do to improve this awareness, because we've all spoken about the fact that there is a lack of awareness, there's a lack of motivations both for youth as well as employers. So do you, if I may twist it into a question which I'd like to frame like this, that each one of you, would you like to share with me 3 things that employers should do, or 3 things you would like to share employers in terms of why they should have more apprentices, and 3 things to youth why they should become an apprentice? maybe that will answer the questions which is there in the chat box right now. So Mr. Khandeja, you, and then Mr. Gandhi, you.
Okay, so on the employer side, look, our problem is pizza. Pizza comes in 30 minutes, so we want everything quick. We need manpower. Okay, we need it right now. So if organizations don't get out of this mentality that I need it now. When I was in my earlier organization, what we did was we had to start medical coding in India at a huge scale. So one was you can hire from outside. Second was you don't have those many coders there. So we started with creating our own crop. And when we created our own crop, after 2 years, we were able to see that those were the people who stuck around with us because they saw career with us. They saw this organization as their own organization. Second aspect, if you see, talk about, say, ITES industry and look at their attrition. Everyone will tell you 5% attrition. 5% is monthly, so we are talking about 60% attrition. But if you look at organizations like Infosys or Wipro, they have literally half of it, 2% or 2.5% per month, which is 24 to 30%, where everyone else is experiencing 60 to 70% attrition. What have they done differently? They're bringing fresh people from the college, they're training them on their own. So when you build your own crop, chances of you having less attrition are much more. You have better workforce in terms of quality. So when you raise your kids, that time do you look at how much money I am putting in this kid and how much this kid is going to give me back? You basically try to improve life of your own children, and that in turn improves your life. That is what the cycle is. So if we approach apprenticeship, if organizations approach apprenticeship from this view, then it works like what Sitaram was saying. Moment you get into statistics, you lose the essence. And once you lose the essence, then it is a tick mark activity. So importance is not to lose the essence. Another piece from the employee side or from the apprentice side. One is, if you start calling, okay, this guy is an apprentice, it is not giving you social status. So we need to work on this social status thing. Earlier, there was a time when all the actors which were there, they were not respected in the society. Oh, this guy is an actor, looked down upon. To talk about dancing as a profession, people used to look down upon. Now, these are aspirational jobs because you created stars out of them. And that glorification is very much required for this, because unless the job is glorified. I was talking to a Uber driver. So I asked him, you were in the village, so why did you come to Bombay and started driving Uber? Do you earn more money here? He said, sir, money is the same. If I would have done farming, I would have earned the same money. Then I said, then you should go to your home and earn the same money there. He said, sir, there is a difference. Now when I go home, people treat me with respect. People do things for respect, and that is something which we should respect. So if we are able to bring this element from the society side, I believe the problems which youngsters face, those problems will be over. I believe I will stop here and.
Sure. Mr. Gandhi, same over to you. 3 things that you would like to tell employers why they should have more apprentices, and same for youth.
Yeah. So I'll be quick in telling. The organization should take pride in building careers. So that should be the approach to apprentice. While designing the program, keep in mind that you are taking care of careers of one generation, and that's your obligation and strength. So if this is the essence for building the whole program, the apprenticeship works. That's for the organizations. And for institute, I would say, put the realistic sense. Don't try to hype while they are in college, and then they find it huge difference when they enter into industry. So show them realistic. In the 4 years, show them to learn. So learning capability rather than resisting is. And for students, 1 year in industry, I think this is a golden opportunity. Nothing is at stake, nothing is at risk. Grasp as much as possible. Getting into an industry, can see, being a fresher, being a young, you can ask any question. You can reach out to anyone. Nobody would say no because you are a fresh. So rather than looking apprentice as saying someone, I don't have an experience as a reference, tell proudly that yes, I'm an apprentice, I'm learning. So here is a license for me to ask any question rather than hesitating. I think if 3 of us go with these 3 different mindsets, the apprenticeship program actually will build skill in the society.
Excellent. Thank you so very much. I think there are quite a few questions you have tried to answer. The rest, I think we will ensure that our team comes back to you. But we are running short of time, and hence I'd like to close. But of course, this conversation and discussions will continue. Few things which I have picked up from today's conversation is that it's very important for organizations as well as youth to be very clear on the purpose behind running an apprenticeship program or opting for apprenticeship. Organizations who will end up using it as trying to fulfill a checklist will probably not yield as much result from an apprenticeship program as organizations who have a clear vision, a top-down vision in terms of why apprenticeship actually helps build a very strong, stable future talent pipeline. We also spend time in terms of the need to encourage our youth to opt for apprenticeship. There is obviously a lack of awareness, and whatever we can do as individuals, as corporates, also in liaise with the government to encourage more corporates as well as youth to join that, it would probably still be not enough. I think there is obviously ways and means through which technology can make a difference in the world of apprenticeship. We are seeing some good progress happening when it comes to diversity, especially in certain segments of graduate apprentices. We have to make progress in the other areas, just like overall we need to make progress in improving women workforce participation. I think there are many more questions that have been going around in my head, but I think we need to take a pause today, and maybe we will come back again. And thank you, Mr. Khanduja, thank you, Mr. Gandhi, that in spite of the storm that's going around in our environment, and I'm sure each one of you in your respective organizations have enough to battle, and especially given you are both from human resource. Thank you so very much for taking your time out, and hopefully we will see you back in this forum again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.